I'm speaking to you from my home in Maui, Hawaii, and you might say, oh gosh, you live in paradise. And to some extent, it's true, except for two situations. One is if you have to go to school, and the other is if you get a serious illness. And then someplace else is paradise. So that's true in my situation as well as many other people. So I'm the board president of ANCAN, ancan.org, which was originally founded some 5 years ago as the Answer to Cancer Foundation. It was started by a group of about half a dozen men with prostate cancer to varying degrees. And I happened in upon it very early on, at the time we were incorporating. And I'm filling in right now for Mr. Rick Davis, who lives in Arizona, and he's our founder. And he had a vision to see that there are many people dealing with serious illness and disease that are pretty far away from any kind of support. If you live in a big city or a large metropolitan area, you can find support groups. But when you're out in the hinterland, like I am in Hawaii here, it's pretty hard to find that kind of support. So we initiated online virtual meetings way back then, about 5 years ago. And now here we find ourselves in the era of COVID-19, and it's become the thing. So we found that our meetings have been substantially growing in attendance until there are 25, 30 people on a weekly meeting. And nobody's shy anymore. It used to be that people just called in on the phone and stayed kind of anonymous. Now everybody's willing to show their face. So we dropped the Answer Cancer Foundation name tag and switched to ANCAN several years ago because we realized that this format worked not only for cancer, but for many other illnesses. And to this day, we run some 25 groups on a monthly basis, weekly basis, and 11 of those are cancer related, and several others are not. So we see nothing but expansion. We're kind of a grassroots organization, but we're here to passionately help others connect and get expert advice that you will receive there. So we initiated this series of webinars a month or two ago. The first one happened to be on prostate cancer, and we called it The Talk, because we realized that serious illness, whether it be cancer or any other illness like MS, is not just affecting the individual who's diagnosed, but it's affecting the whole family. And this is true in my situation. I have a genetically driven disease of aggressive prostate cancer, and I have two sons who have a high likelihood of continuing on this saga, maybe long after I'm gone. So educating oneself, understanding the dynamics, whether it's genetically driven or any other way, is imperative. And that's why we focus on education, support, and advocacy, helping others understand their illness and disease, finding the help that they can get, and connecting with others that share situations the same as them. So that's ANCAN, that's me. And now I'd like to introduce our moderator, Brenda Miller. I'm going to read this because I was just informed about this a short time ago. Brenda came into nursing as a second career in 2013 after obtaining a bachelor's degree in history and economics. She's been working with the MS Center of Greater Washington since February of 2014 as an RN and an MSCN. She finished her MSN-FN degree in August 2020 and will continue to work at the MS Center as a nurse practitioner. So Brenda's coming at this from two different directions. Brenda was diagnosed with MS in 1993 and has 4 children as well, and currently lives in Northern Virginia. So let's join and welcome Brenda, who will carry on and introduce the others. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. We have a great group of panelists tonight, and just wanted to thank you for that nice introduction too, and for the introduction to what we're doing tonight. So actually, I don't need my glasses. We have 4 families, one person in each family with MS, and their family members here just to talk about their experiences with MS and living together as a family. Our first panelist is Carrie Anderson, and Carrie lives in Urbandale, Iowa with her husband, Chris, and their 13-year-old son, Kellen. And as a wife, a mom, a daughter, a sister, an aunt, and friend living with MS for more than 10 years, her advocacy efforts span from Iowa to Washington, D.C. She's a founder of MS Moments, and she tirelessly advocates for Iowa families living with MS. Through her effort to help others, the National MS Society, the Upper Midwest chapter, named her the Advocate of the Year and honored her with their Hope Award in 2018. Our second family of panelists is Wanda Tyrell, and Wanda lives in Hawaii. And we also have her 27-year-old daughter, Tasia, who lives in Maryland. In 1987, Wanda joined the Army, but she felt something was wrong, but she could not pinpoint what it was. She was discharged from the Army in May of 1990, and 2 months later, she lost vision in her right eye. Wanda eventually was diagnosed with MS, and the doctor assured her that MS was not going to kill her, but it would alter her life. Wanda had Tasia in November of 1992, so Wanda with MS is all that Tasia has ever known. Our third family, Justin Weiss, the Weiss family. Justin and his family live in Long Island, New York, and he was 35 years old when he was diagnosed. His daughter Megan was 5, and she's now 17 years old, which is about the same age that Justin was when his mother was diagnosed with MS. Throughout her life, Justin's mother did not talk about her MS a lot, but Justin and his wife Nancy do nothing at all to hide the MS that Justin has from Megan. And in fact, Megan's been an active member of Justin's MS walk and bike team, Team Phoenix, each year since he was diagnosed. And our last family is Channing Barker's family. At 16 years old, Channing was diagnosed with relapsing remitting MS, and that was in 2006. She has since volunteered countless hours to work toward a world free of MS at events and in public policy as an MS activist at the state and federal levels. Channing and her adorable dog Benny live in Northwest Arkansas. Her mother, Patty, lives in Tulsa, and she's joined Channing in leading the fight against MS and, among other roles, serves as an MS activist in Oklahoma. And finally, we are very honored to have Dr. Aaron Boster here with us tonight. He's going to give us a little MS talk about MS and about MS with families. Dr. Boster is the founder of the Boster Center for Multiple Sclerosis and is a leading MS vlogger. He is a board-certified neurologist specializing in multiple sclerosis and related CNS inflammatory disorders. He decided to become an MS doctor at age 12 as he watched his Uncle Mark suffer from the disease in an era before treatment was available. Dr. Boster grew up in Columbus, Ohio, and he attended undergraduate at Oberlin College. He earned his MD at University of Cincinnati College of Medicine, and he completed an internship in internal medicine and residency in neurology at the University of Michigan. He then completed a 2-year fellowship in clinical neuroimmunology at Wayne State University. Since then, Dr. Boster has been intimately involved in the care of people impacted by multiple sclerosis. He's been a principal investigator in numerous clinical trials. He's trained multiple MS doctors and nurse practitioners and published extensively in medical journals. He lectures to both patients and providers worldwide with a mission to educate, energize, and empower people impacted by MS. He lives in Columbus, Ohio with his wife, Chrissy, his son, Maxwell, and his daughter, Betty May. So, Dr. Boster, turn it over to you. Thank you.
Howdy. Brenda, thank you so very much for the introduction. And I'd like to thank AmCam for the opportunity to talk to everyone tonight. My introduction to multiple sclerosis began as a child. I have no memories of my uncle not with MS. And when my Uncle Mark was in his early 30s, his disease progressed to the point where he could no longer live alone. He moved home to sunny Columbus, Ohio, into my grandparents' home. And he lived with my Nini and Pop. They cared for him until he passed away in his mid-60s. I helped carry his casket. I grew up in a home where MS was central. I saw firsthand what it meant to be a care partner, what it meant to be a family member of someone impacted by MS. I saw firsthand as the disease deteriorated my uncle in an era before we had therapies, what it meant to provide care and to love and to support. To say that that influenced me as a human being is a gross understatement. It shaped my worldview. I was the weirdo in high school that said, I'm going to be an MS doc. I actually made that decision when I was 12. And I didn't make that decision because my uncle had MS. It was because of my family that I made that decision. I remember very vividly, I came to my grandmother's house and my uncle was in the living room watching television in his wheelchair. My grandmother and my mother were in the kitchen. They were holding hands, their heads were bowed, and they were crying. They weren't crying because my uncle had MS. He had MS my entire life. They were crying because they were scared and they were alone and they couldn't get a hold of his doctor. And they were crying, whispering because they didn't want to upset him in the other room. I told my mother that I would learn to do it better, that I would learn to take care of people like my uncle. I had no clue what I was telling my mom. I didn't know that I'd go to the 27th grade or be bald by the time I was done training, but I knew that nobody should make my family feel that alone and that scared, not in my hometown. I've had a very directed course. It's become my mission to improve the lives of people impacted by MS, both care partners, family members, and patients alike. That's something I'm very passionate about. I was asked to deliver some opening remarks tonight, and what an honor. I'm actually super excited so that I can learn from these families. And I've reflected back on the last 15 years of delivering MS care. I've sat in rooms where I've shared a diagnosis with families, and I've hopscotched through lives as people have come to terms with their condition and their family members have come to terms with their condition. I thought I would lead today's discussion sharing a few takeaways, things that I've noticed over the years. There are two questions that I am most commonly asked after I deliver a diagnosis. Now, the dust has to settle, the tears have to stop, and then typically there's two questions, and over 15 years, they've almost always been the same. The first question is, Doc, is this going to kill me? It's a very understandable question, and with pride, I say no, not in the modern era, not in 2020, with our current application of highly effective therapies and attention to detail. It's our expectation that you're going to have a normal life expectancy. And if we play our cards right, a normal life quality, although that's a little harder to do. The second question that I'm almost always asked is a question that every single parent on this call is already thinking. Am I going to give this to my kids? And I want to answer that question for you. I live in sunny Columbus, Ohio, in the Midwestern United States, where multiple sclerosis is endemic. The rate of the general population here in sunny Columbus is about 1 in 400. So if you do advanced math, that means that the average person in Ohio has a risk of MS of about 0.25%. If you have multiple sclerosis yourself, your first-degree relatives, meaning mom, dad, brothers, sisters, your children, their risk is about 1 in 40, which is 2.5%. So it's quite substantially higher than the general population, and yet it's much, much lower than classic genetic conditions like cystic fibrosis or sickle cell anemia. I like to then make sure that I inform patients that there are things that we can do to help lower your children's risk of MS. Morbid obesity pre-puberty doubles a child's risk to develop multiple sclerosis. Exposure to tobacco smoke, firsthand from smoking or secondhand because someone's smoking near them, also doubles the child's risk to develop MS. And many families don't know that. Now, I've never met a family that said, smoke up, Johnny. And yet there's another reason why we need to educate our children to avoid exposure to tobacco. Low levels of vitamin D pre-puberty increase an individual's risk to develop MS. And whereas I, as an adult neuroimmunologist, don't treat my patients' children, I certainly encourage them to talk to their pediatrician so that they can check the child's level and then supplement with a goal of being over 50 and under 100. You don't have MS by yourself. You have MS with your village. And the most important village members, the key, the core of that village is your family. For those of you that are familiar with me on social media, I use the hashtag #WeHaveMS. Hashtag #WeHaveMS speaks to the fact that you don't get to have this disease by yourself. And if you're listening to this call and you think that you're an island by yourself and that this disease doesn't have ripples and impacts in your family, then you are mistaken. It's not true. Both as a family member and as a doctor that has dedicated my life to kicking this disease in the teeth, that's simply not the case. But you can't help your family come to terms. You can't educate your children why they need to not smoke. You can't help them live their best life if you don't have the talk. I've seen families where the person impacted by MS doesn't tell anyone, no one. Their spouse doesn't know. Their children don't know. I can share with you that that's a recipe for sadness. That's a recipe for distraught. And I strongly encourage folks to go the other direction. But it's tricky. Let's be honest. Oftentimes, there's a lot of trepidation in talking about the disease, and it's because it can go south in one of two ways. Many of you on the call have heard the term, well, honey, you look so good. And the concept that, oh, you look so good doesn't just apply to people at church. It can apply to your loved ones. It can apply to your spouse. And it can apply to your own parents and your own children because your mom is superwoman. Mom doesn't need sleep. Mom can make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich magically appear. Mom will take you to your soccer practice and pick you up and make sure that you have lasagna. And when mom says she's tired, whatever. Honey, you look so good. And so sometimes when you tell your core village members and they don't hear what you're saying, it hurts. And there's a desire just to hide. And I want you to fight that desire. But it can go the other direction. I've seen times where family members become so fearful that they wrap their loved one in proverbial saran wrap and bubble wrap, and they shelter them. And God forbid that we say anything disconcerting because they could break like a China doll, which is not true. Human beings are resilient. Human beings are amazing. And it is my goal that people impacted by MS live their very best life despite having this condition. And I can tell you, with 15 years of experience and an entire childhood growing up with MS central in my family, that one of the absolute keys to success is to bring your village along. It is important to have that talk. Now, before I sit with you and learn from the families that have so bravely agreed to talk to us tonight, I wanted to share with you 2 pro tips that I've picked up over the years. Things that help families come to terms with this disease and move away from, honey, you look so good, or, oh my God, don't let her break. And so my first pro tip is I want to see the village attend my clinic visits. I want to see the spouse next to the person impacted by MS. I insist that the children come at least once a year to clinic. And I think that it is critically important that they listen and observe as we talk about the reality of the invisible nature of this disease, what pathologic fatigue actually means, what cog fog means, what it means to be an adult and lose your bladder in a supermarket. I want to show the family the MRI because, honey, you look so good. Melts away when you see a picture of mom's brain. And I show you the brain damage. I want to share a second tip. It's a book called MediKids, Multiple Sclerosis. Now, I have no affiliation with MediKids, but I think they're amazing. And if you guys have Google, look it up. MediKids MS is a graphic novel, which is an adult word for comic book. Whoever wrote it is brilliant, and the immunology in the textbook is spot on. But it's a story about a young boy whose mom gets MS and he doesn't understand. And the MediKids are superheroes that come from a different planet and they teach him about MS from the inside. It's actually a very cool book. And it doesn't just apply to children. I've read it with my children. I've given it to families so they can read it with their children. Teenagers and young adults can read it and they understand. It's a beautiful thing. And so I leave you with those two pro tips, having dedicated my life to trying to beat this disease and help families impacted by MS, bring them to clinic and include them in the village. My name is Aaron Boster, and as always, I want to thank you for learning about MS with me, but more importantly, I want us to welcome some brave families from around the United States that are going to teach us tonight, and they're going to share their own journey. And so, Brenda, I pack it back to you, and I eagerly await learning from these families impacted by MS.
Thank you, Dr. Boster, for that. We're going to start out tonight with Carrie Anderson, Kellen, and Chris. Can you guys join me on the camera with your webcams? Cool. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. So I see all three of you there. That's good. Kellen, thanks for being brave and being on with us too. We won't ask you too many questions. But Carrie, let's start with you. And how big of a role does MS play in your family life? And how much do you talk about it? How much does it impact you on a daily basis?
That's a question I get asked quite frequently, to be honest. It plays a bigger role maybe than some of us would like, more because the course of my disease didn't start typical. It started very quickly and had an accident, and I had MS and had an exacerbation immediately. So for us, that beginning first 5 years was not this trying to figure out what you have or what is wrong. It was really, we know what's wrong, and you're not going to like us much here the first year because we're going to get moving really quickly on things. So, and then from there, I kind of dove in with the MS Society and started a bike team, and that evolved into our own foundation. So it's a part of our daily lives, and it doesn't really go away. And some way, shape, or form, we're talking about it, whether it's me sitting at the computer to do something for our foundation or a doctor's appointment for me, those kinds of things.
Cool, thank you. So when did you know it was the right time to let Kellen in on the realities of your diagnosis? When did you tell him about it, or was it kind of a slow process? How did that work?
Yeah, no, I would say it was pretty quick. It was pretty quick. Day one. He was there day one. It was. Yeah. He was 2.5 when I was diagnosed, and again, because of the way I was diagnosed and the course of my disease, it was really one of those situations where he was involved right away, and I came home and I was, at IVs or I was doing physical therapy, and so we really had to engage him quickly. I
think we lost your camera. Can you still hear me? Okay, that's all right. Well, that's okay.
Sorry,
we can still hear you.
It's been our thing today. For some unknown reason, we've been struggling to keep connectivity. So sorry about that.
That's okay. We can hear you. That's all. That's the big part of it. So I do have a question for Kellen and too. Kellen, what's it like for you having a mom who has MS? Oh, you're back.
Well, we don't really get to do like as much physical activity with my mom because her legs and stuff, but it also does mean that she's home more than most moms that I would, and she's there more Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. That's a big deal to have your mom around a lot, you know. So what, Carrie, what are some of the ways that you've kept MS from getting in the way of your parenting? I know that he said, you know, you're not as able to do some physical things, but that definitely could be an impediment. But what kind of things have you done to prevent that from getting in the way of family life and parenting?
Sure. I think the biggest thing for us is communication. Well, I don't think we're great at it. I think we're significantly better today than we were 10 years ago. I think Kellen has a good understanding, and so does Chris. Of later in the day, it's harder for me. I usually am, you know, more of a morning person, and we don't sit down and do homework, and for sure not math homework at 8 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock at night. And so, you know, really from a parenting perspective, also, I mean, like when I'm doing steroids, or, you know, getting IV steroids, Kellen and I know this last time, just sat down and had a talk. And I said, if mom is grouchy, here's what's happening. Just tell me I'm being a little bit too short, and don't take advantage of that either. And just say, because I didn't do something I should be doing, right, buddy? Right? Huh? So yeah, I mean, I think for us really it's the communication is key. I'm not shy to share in this circle, you know, when I'm not having a great day. And I try to make sure that even the days that may not be, that may be harder than the day before, but yet may not be the extreme, you know, that I still get up and show up. And I think, you know, that has motivated me, and, you know, I want to be a good mom, and I don't ever want to feel like I'm holding him back from the things that he wants to do or where he wants to go. And so, you know, I think, again, really for us, it's about communication and making sure that we laugh a lot. That's probably going to become more prevalent here. And if you ask my husband questions, he's a pretty funny guy. And so we laugh a lot to get through, you know, the hard days. So I'm thankful for them. And a lot of my tribe I know is on the phone too and listening. And Dr. Foster said it so well. I mean, and Dr. Hughes is my neurologist here in the Des Moines area. And he, I remember the first year he told me numerous times, the course of your disease is very dependent on your village and the people around you. And I feel super blessed to be, you know, have the best around me.
Cool. So it sounds like you kind of are already an advocate for people with your MS moments. And one of the questions we had for you were, what resources have you turned to? But it sounds like you might be someone that people turn to. Did you have anything that kind of was key for you before you started your organization, just to help in communicating about MS within your family? Or what would you have liked to have known about sooner? What would you communicate to families who are just starting this process?
I think for us, you know, first of all, my neurologist is amazing, and his the Ruan Clinic is wonderful to answer questions, and you know, and to be honest with us and tell us that you know, that first year is going to be hard, that second year is going to be hard. So, you know, totally being honest with us in what we're doing and, you know, and how we do it. But I think for the most part, what we did, you know, 3 weeks in, I reached out to the MS Society, and you know, that was a big help for us. While some of that has run its course from the perspective of, you know, now 10 years in, and you're probably right. I probably answer more questions than I have questions at this point. But I do think that you shouldn't put yourself in a box. Find what works for you and find what works for your family and your dynamic. We did see a therapist. Kellen still sees a therapist, and you know, so those resources are there. And again, I don't think put yourself in a box. Try to find a group of people. Try to find a village of people. And MS Moments has really been that for me. And again, you know, my husband said it well before we came on here. Is that also has some days is difficult, because when I'm struggling and someone calls and wants to talk to me about how they're feeling, you know, it's definitely can be an energy zapper. But I want to be a helper too, and that's kind of my personality. So, you know, it's that I'm sure we'll hear this throughout the night, but kind of picking and choosing where you use your spoons or where your energy is given. And so helping people, and I think that's what I've been grateful for with my family, is they've seen that this has kind of been an outlet for me, and to not be angry, and to be, to turn that into something good.
The makeup of the board of MS Moments has also changed, which I think has helped. Like, it's initially, Carrie was the only person with MS on that board. So when we would do a fundraiser, you had 8 people saying, what do we need help for? We'll just do this for 13 hours today and be good.
No big deal.
Yeah, no big deal. And, that wasn't feasible for somebody with MS to be like, oh yeah, let's go ahead and hang out in 95-degree weather from sun up to sundown. But now the composition of the board has changed, where I'm not sure, how many do you have now?
We have 4 members on our board that live with MS.
Yeah, so that is sort of, there's more input, I guess, to sort of widen the village to handle some of those activities and fundraisers.
That's pretty important. Chris, do you have any other thoughts to share on the journey with Carrie and her MS and parenting as a husband of someone with MS?
It's gotten easier over the years. I think some of the struggles that we had early were, really were a lot of Carrie's close friends, that they were still very active. And it became difficult, I guess, for Carrie. I mean, probably the first 4 years, I would say it became difficult at times for Carrie to keep up with them. And then Kellen and I would sort of feel the effects of that for, her overdoing it one day. We would be the ones who sort of felt the negative effects of that the next couple of days, as she was short and, exhausted and so forth. I think as we've moved into our mid-30s, right?
Yeah, we're only 30.
Yeah.
We're just little babies. I
Me
had
too.
Kellen when I was 5.
Her core group of friends have slowed down. They don't have MS, but they just have slowed down. And I think that's helped out significantly. Because I think
Gotcha.
before Carrie was very much, I want to go do this, but it's just not feasible. Well, a lot of those types of activities they don't do anymore. I mean, there's no, let's go hang out at a softball tournament and drink all day from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. in 90-degree weather. They don't do those things anymore. So that has made things easier. And then I think also, just the experience. Carrie sort of knows what triggers are, I guess, that, something's about to go down. And, is better able to address those things. And then I think, and then really from a parenting perspective, it's just a matter of trying to, communicate and sort of delegate duties. Like we do a lot of things sort of as, I guess, probably compared to most families, we probably do a lot of things as single parents. We're sort of trading, trading duties.
That makes sense.
But I don't think that that's negatively impacted Kellen a whole lot.
So far.
Yeah.
He might
Oh,
disagree,
that's good.
probably disagree because I said it, but yeah, I think that's
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for your time tonight. We really appreciate it. Going to move on to the next group, but your experience has been a great lead off, and I know it was really valuable for everyone listening.
Thank you for having us here.
No, thank you so much.
Thank
That was
you.
good. Thank you, Colin. I appreciate it. All right, Wanda and Tasia, let's bring you guys on and talk about your MS journey. Hey, Wanda, here's Tasia. I'm saying your name right, Tasia?
Yeah, it's Tasia.
Okay, go. Okay, so I guess you guys have lived, well, Tasia, you've lived with your mom having MS your whole life.
Mhm.
You haven't really known anything else. So this question might seem strange to you, but how big of a role does MS play in your family life? And how much do you talk about it? Is it just kind of a part of your daily fabric? I mean, you don't live together anymore, but growing up, what kind of a role did it play?
It was all that I knew. It wasn't, I've only known her to be, disabled and, with the limited mobility. So it wasn't something that I ever questioned. That was just my norm. And it was regular. It wasn't a thing where we sat down and talked about it. It was just kind of like, this is what my mom has, and that was my life.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Wanda? How did you address it when she was little and growing up? How did you introduce her to the fact that you had MS? Was it just always something that was talked about, or did you tell her about it one day? We can't hear you, Wanda. Do you?
Oh, I think your microphone is muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Thank you.
Aloha, everyone. Yes, but it was just the norm for us. Like I said, I was diagnosed in July of '90. I lost vision in my right eye. Overnight, it came back, but I didn't know it was something serious because I've worn glasses since I was like 10. So I just thought I needed a new script. And when I went to get my eyes checked, they said, your eyes are fine. So one doctor sent me to get an MRI. And when I got the results of the MRI, he said, yep, you have plaques on your brain, so you have multiple sclerosis. And this was, mid 90s. I had never heard of multiple sclerosis. So just like the doctor said, the first question I asked, I was like, how long do I have, to live? And he was like, it's not going to kill you. It's just going to affect, your way of life. So I had to go to the library and do some research. And it said that multiple sclerosis mainly affects white women in their 40s. I'm like, well, I'm Black in my 20s. So, what's that all about? But as the years have gone on, I've realized that, a lot of Black women do have it. It's just it's not reported as much. So I don't think, like I said, that was 30 years ago. So a lot has changed since then. But yeah, my daughter she was born in 92, and when I was pregnant in 91, I got foot drop. And so then I got leg braces. So when she was born, that's what I had. I think 5 years later, I was in a wheelchair. After that, I used a walker. So all she's ever known is my disability. And I used to take her to the MS meetings with me. So she saw people with different stages of MS. And I told her, it's an unpredictable, disease. So one day, I could be walking and the next day I could not. So I prepared her for it, and that's all she's known.
Mhm. So Tasia, what was it like for you growing up with a mom with MS? I know you said it was all you ever knew, but did you feel like, I know Kellen just talked about that maybe some of the things he wanted to do, like that his friends do, he couldn't do as with his mom because she's not as active. Did you find that? Did you, where did you go for support with what you were feeling with your mom's diagnosis?
Yeah, I definitely related when he said that, his lifestyle was a little bit different than his friends because that was my childhood. And that was, as a young child, middle school, high school, it was hard. Even though it was all that I had knew. So I think the older I got, the harder it became. Um, because she was limited in what she could do. We did have family, like my grandmother and my aunts were very instrumental in like that being a village for us. So the things that my mom couldn't do, they were there to kind of like show up for, like sports games and stuff like that. But it doesn't take away from the fact that, your parent can't always be there. So that was something that I think I struggled with a little bit. I think I dealt with a little bit of like the teenage embarrassment, which I think all teenagers go through. But for me, it was a little bit different because mine was feeling self-conscious about my parent and her disability because I understood it, but my peers didn't. So we would go places and there'd be looks and conversations. And I felt myself sometimes like if we had parent teacher conferences, I wanted to like distance myself from her because I'm like, I don't want my friends like questioning and judging her because I get upset. And then, it was just normal teenage things that they didn't understand and they couldn't be faulted for it. It was something that I knew, but they didn't quite understand. And then I would struggle afterwards with feeling guilt about it, for being like ashamed of my parents. So that was something that I think the older I've gotten, I've had to kind of work at forgiving that younger child, for those feelings because it's normal, but as a kid you don't realize that it's okay to struggle with those things. It's to be expected. It's a lot. Sorry. I'm an emotional person. I knew I was gonna cry. But it wasn't always. I think it definitely benefited me more than anything. It molded me into the person that I am. I had a lot more compassion and understanding compared to my peers. I was very non-judgmental, patient, and that's something that I carry into my adulthood, that I wouldn't have experienced or kind of learned so soon had it not been for my mother's MS. Going to her support groups and seeing people in their different stages, and that was my norm. So when I see people with differences, I understand it. I don't judge, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. Would you, you kind of answered this, I think, by the end of what you said. I was going to ask if you had any advice for parents on, like, your mom, did what she could, but would you have wanted her to tell you anything different or explain things in a different way at all? Or Wanda, would you have explained things differently if you could? We all would do things differently in some ways, but
Right.
I don't know if there's anything in particular.
I enjoyed the doctor's talk, and I wish that I had that book when Taser was younger, so I could, give it to her. But I don't know what I could have done differently. I mean,
It sounds like you turned out a very compassionate daughter. So I don't know if you should have. It sounds like you did it right.
Well, for me, because it was all that I knew, because she had it before I was born, there weren't as many like sit down conversations that I think would have been had if she had got diagnosed after I had been born. So I did, I think, sometimes have this like irrational fear that she was going to die from MS. And I don't think that was really talked about. I mean, now that I understand the disease, that fear is not there, but I think that's something that as a child, I wish I would have had, a little bit more of like, I'm going to be okay. This is not going to kill me. Cause there were times where like, I just be ready to get home. I'm like, I know she's asleep in the house. I just want to make sure she's awake. I mean, alive and asleep. I had that irrational fear that yeah, MS was going to take her. And I think because it was our norm, it wasn't discussed that, like, this is not fatal.
Yeah.
I think that's important to kind of talk about in families, like what the prognosis is and like what you can expect, because I knew that her health could, decline at times, but I didn't know if a decline would be like the end. So I think I was kind of on edge sometimes.
No, that's really good. These 10-minute slots are flying by really quickly, but thank you guys so much. That was really good. I wish we had more time with everybody, but thank you, Tasia and Wanda, so much for
Thank
your
you.
input.
Thank you.
And it was really valuable. So thank you.
Thank you.
So now, let's see, we're going to bring on Justin and Megan. If Megan can get the camera to work again for Justin. When we were starting out tonight, Megan had to do it for him. Call you out there, Justin. Sorry.
All right.
How are you guys tonight?
Very
Thank
good.
you for good. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for
So
having
kind of the same sort of opening question for both of you. How big of a role does MS play in your family life, and how much do you guys talk about it? I know your wife couldn't be with us tonight too, but you can kind of speak for her as well, I guess.
She is actually watching us.
Ah,
The MS has just been a part of my life since I was young. My mother had it. She was diagnosed when I was a teenager, just like I was diagnosed when, well, no, Megan was 5. She's a teenager now.
I was in kindergarten.
Kindergarten, first grade, somewhere in that range. I don't remember a time without it in one way or another. My mother passed away, and we kind of turned our backs on it for a little while, and then all of a sudden I started having symptoms and got diagnosed. It was a much different disease for me than it was for my mother. My mother had it during a time when there were no treatments, there were no therapies. They knew very little about it. They basically told her to go home, go to bed, don't exert yourself, which is kind of the opposite of what they tell us to do now. My mother was a very athletic woman. She was very strong. And it slowly took one piece away from her at a time. When I got diagnosed, that was my fear. Am I now going to be like that? My mother's biggest fear was passing it on to one of her children. And, so all those realities, all those things became reality for me. And again, my fear was, am I going to pass this to my daughter? I remember just getting the diagnosis and holding her as a young child, thinking to myself, my God, is history going to repeat itself again? Well, what am I going to do? My mother was very passionate about trying out experimental therapies, experimental drugs and stuff like that. Some of them helped her for a short time. Some of them actually pushed her further down the road. But I personally believe that everything that she did in one way or another led to the treatments that I have today so that I can live a more normal life. That being said, when I got diagnosed, I got involved and I started doing, everything I could so that, hopefully this chain will continue. And should Megan have to face that one day, there hopefully will be a cure.
Yeah.
And since that time, my friends, my family, we started Team Phoenix, and we've been raising money for multiple sclerosis. We had a support group for a time. My wife and I have spoken at the MS Society's Nationals. I have spoken at numerous newly diagnosed seminars to try and give people the confidence they need to live their life to the fullest. And as far as Megan's concerned, she's been involved since day one. You know, as a kid, we had a group called the Junior Phoenixes, and you know, when we would do events, they would do like small events alongside us.
The little lemonade stand.
Yeah,
was
they
our
had
thing.
a lemonade
Cool.
cookie stand. They were raising money alongside one of our garage sales, and her and her friends were awesome through that whole.
I've always felt that it's important for myself to stay involved as well, because I do think that this is something that is a part of our life. And I hope that, you know, people see us and they see, hey, this is something that it's okay. Like, it's going to be fine. I've always seen it to be important for myself as well, because I see this as, this is my father, you know, this is somebody who's been a part of my life. This man created me. This is my dad, you know, I love him. So I've always felt it was important to be there and not only, you know, be prepared, God forbid something happens to me or somebody in my life other than my father, and I get to support my dad because this is my dad. You know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's awesome. You guys have kind of answered some of the questions already that I had prepared, but which is perfect. I'm glad. That's good. From what I understood, Justin, your mom was kind of quiet about her MS. Is that true?
Yes.
So
At that time, they didn't know anything about it. So my mother was kind of old school in that sense. You know, like she didn't want her, you know, for me or my brother to worry about her, you know. And I mean, yeah, you know, like one day mom was walking with a cane, you know. One day mom couldn't use the cane anymore. She needed a walker, then, you know, wheelchair, then she's bedridden. And there really was very little information. So, you know, she was the kind of person where when she saw us, she just wanted to be with us and hang with us and have a good time and laugh. And she didn't want to talk about what was bothering her and how much pain she was in, or, you know, how frustrating it was that, you know, she couldn't go to the bathroom by herself, you know, all these things. It, I never wanted to do that, you know, like with Megan, you know, I can't tell you how many times she and I have actually had, you know, heart to heart talks about multiple sclerosis and how I feel. And I've gone to my neurologist is Dr. Stephen Newman here on Long Island. He's a wonderful man, and he does many talks, sponsored talks, and we get invited to these dinners. And I would bring Megan with me, and you know that would spark conversations, which would, you know, be educational for her, and I would get feedback from her as to how she feels. You know, I told her once that we started Team Phoenix. It wasn't really for me. I have MS. You know, I'm going to be okay. Team Phoenix was started for her and for her generation, so that, you know, the next generation, you know, won't be affected so much. Like, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm not going to, you know, magically knock over chemicals in my kitchen and come up with a cure for MS. So I have to do what I can. You know, I believe you don't have any right to complain unless you're willing to do something about it. So, you know, jump in, pull your pants up, and tie your boots, and get out there and get to work. You know.
that's awesome. That's awesome. So yeah, so she's known about it since the beginning. It's always been just a part of your life, and you're open about it, which is great.
Yeah.
Are there any ways that you can think of? I mean, the other two, you know, children have talked about, you know, the ways that MS has limited some of their activities or things that they, you know, have noticed in their lives. Sounds like you guys have kind of done things together throughout.
We're a juggernaut.
you know what?
We do everything. Yeah.
I have the luxury of, my father is a fighter. He has always been a fighter, even before MS. He spent 22 years of his life running a landscaping business, and when he was diagnosed, he was running said landscaping business. And he did not let his MS get in the way of doing this. And he still worked. Oh my God, you wouldn't come home till 9 o'clock at night most days. And to say that it's limited some of the things that we've done, I don't think that I could say that. I could say that I could definitely see my father being very fatigued at times, and I make fun of him for it because I'm his daughter and I would do that. I wouldn't be his daughter if I didn't. So yeah, you know, I'm very fortunate to have a role model like this man right here.
Yeah, it seems like you guys have a really cool relationship. And
Yeah,
everybody's
she's-
MS is so different. It changes from day to day and what you can do. And you can probably address that as well as anyone, that there are days when you can do a lot and days when maybe you can't. But
I am definitely, I consider myself very fortunate. I'm one of the lucky ones. I think because my mother had MS, when my symptoms started coming on, I kind of like, I dreaded it, but I knew what it was. So I got diagnosed. I got on medication early. Like Megan says, I've done one form of hard labor after another my whole life. So I was strong when I first got diagnosed, and we've made it a point to, you know, like get involved. We ran a 5K. I think it was the first or second year I was diagnosed. I'm not a runner unless something very big is chasing me. I'm not the kind of person that runs. But you know, I needed to do this for myself mentally. You know, I needed to throw myself into everything and anything. And, you know, we've done Muckfest. We drove out to Detroit to do Muckfest out there. The 5K, we created a fundraiser at a trampoline place where we were doing trampoline dodgeball. We did the top of the rock. My wife did it first. She did wonderful. And then I did it just last year. Was it last year?
Yeah.
Last year, top of the rock. For people that aren't familiar, you climb the steps of Rockefeller Center. It's like 17 steps.
66 flights, I think it is.
Yeah,
So
66 flights, and we did that, and yeah, no, not doing that again anytime soon. But
this is supposed to be my turn.
yeah, well, you know, COVID ended a lot of the fundraisers and events that we normally do. But, you know, again, we try to stay involved. We try to set an example.
good. Well, once again, the 10 minutes have flown by, but thank you so much, both of you, Megan and
Thank you.
Justin. We really appreciate your time tonight, and appreciate everything you guys are doing together and the example you're setting for families. Thank you. All right, moving to our last group, we have Channing and Patty. It's Channing. Hey, Channing.
Hi.
Hi.
I know my mom's on. I don't know where she is just yet.
Yeah, we saw her earlier. We can start with you while she gets set up. So you are there's Mom. Hey, Patty. So this is a little different of a situation because Channing, you're the one with MS, not the parent this time. So we'll start with you. What was it like navigating your teenage and your college years as a person with MS?
Oh man. I would say that navigating MS at 16 was easier than it is navigating it in your 20s. I'm thankful that I was diagnosed when I was 16 because I had the care and the support of my parents, my sibling, and my community. I went to a very, very tight-knit high school, and I'd been very good friends with everyone that I was in school with since I had been in kindergarten. And so we were all really, really close, and that helped tremendously. As we were going through the process of being diagnosed, my cheerleading squad, my dance team, everyone in that community was very clued into what was going on. And we were always really open about it, even when we didn't know what was happening. And I know that's not easy for everyone. So I feel very fortunate in that aspect. And being, you know, just a few hours, less than 2 hours away from my mom, it's been extremely helpful when I needed something to reach out, and she's been able to maneuver like all moms do, move mountains and whatnot. That said, I think that it does get hard at times. I'm a single 31-year-old, bought my first house, and there's been definitely things that I've had to think about comparatively to other people who had, when it comes to buying a house, like stairs, simple things like that, that you don't really think about when you're just doing other things. So getting diagnosed at 16 was a revelation because I had been searching for so long for what was making me so sick. I couldn't walk. And so finally having a label on what was making me, what took away my ability to dance and to walk was huge. I had a label for what made me ill. And then in my 20s, trying to figure out and maneuver how you work with MS while also being somewhat normal is a different task. But you also, when you're open and vulnerable about your situation, you find that everybody's got something they're dealing with.
Yeah, no, that's true. Thank you. So Patty, for you, everybody has parenting books, or you look at parenting books, and there really usually isn't one for raising a child with MS. Even a 16-year-old isn't really a young child anymore, but it's definitely a time of life when you're kind of, every parent's navigating setting their child free and giving them freedom and figuring out how to parent someone who's becoming independent. How was that different for you, do you think, was it hard to kind of let her go, feeling like she had just gotten this diagnosis and you wanted to really protect her? Or was it kind of, I don't know, how did that work for you? I think you're on mute, Patty. Still mute. I don't know if you.
Oh no, I was gonna try again.
No, we can't hear you.
No, we can't hear you.
No. Oh, okay. Well, we'll let Channing talk for you. Channing, how do you think she did out with that? How did she deal with that? Did you feel like you were smothered? Did you feel like she was overprotective, or was she good at letting you go?
She might just text me her answers. That might be a good option. But we've had this conversation many times. So I think that it's almost like tug of war, right? Like in any relationship, you're trying to you're waxing and waiting and trying to figure out what the boundaries are. And when I was 16, I leaned so heavily on her, and I'm just forever grateful for all that she did for me, and still today. And I think that, all kids can say that about their parents. But she to her core is a constant advocate, whether it be for her daughters, whether it be for the cause that she's rooting for, whether it be for a candidate, or it be for, even just for dogs. I mean, she's just a constant advocate. And so she was an advocate in the sense of trying to make sure that I was the patient in control. And I think as a parent, I'm not one, but I think as a parent, that's a really tough thing to do, I imagine, because you're kind of having to loosen the reins a little bit. And so she gave me the control and she gave me power. And she always was telling the doctors, like, look at her. Like, I was a pediatric patient and they were talking to her, which makes sense, right? Because I'm 16, I'm just worried about what to wear to school the next day. And I think I'm invincible. And she's telling the doctors, like, talk to her. She's the patient. She's the one who's dealing with this. But she was, from the get-go, she was very empowering. And as time has gone on, we've tried to figure out, and I think the whole part of this is that we've tried, we've failed, we've gotten back up, we've tried, we've gained a little new experience and a better viewpoint, and we start over and we figure things out. We find context clues. We figure out what works best for our relationship. So, after I was just a year into college. I was less than a year away from college when I was diagnosed. And so from that point on, we really had to lean on each other as to verbalize where I was and where she was and what I was needing from her. So even today, I'm 31. Even today, when we get on the phone, it's either like I'm calling to vent, or I'm calling and I'm saying the worst thing that parents don't want to hear. Hi, everything is fine. There's no need to panic. But I'm really tired today. And I need you to understand and respect that. I'm not having a relapse. I'm just tired. And that's just part of the disease sometimes. And so we had to create this line of what is MS and what is, hey, I need you to be here for me today because I can't drive myself to work. So she's allowed me, with her care and her consideration and her advocacy, she has allowed me to become a better person, to become someone living with MS and thriving. And that's, I think, one of the best gifts you can give your child.
Oh, that's awesome. And you kind of answered the question I was going to ask, how the conversations have changed as you've gotten older. And it sounds like you've grown into that as you've moved along. And you did move away. You're 2 states away, or different states at least.
Yeah, just 1 state away, yeah.
So that's impacted the way you've communicated in some ways, I'm sure, because she's not able to look at you and say, I can tell this is going on, because moms can do that.
You guys have so many superpowers. Yeah, she'll be like, something's wrong in the tone of, and even when we're not FaceTiming, she'll hear my voice. She's like, something's wrong. What's going on? What's happening? I'm like, I'm just tired, or my legs are heavy today, or my right side, something's going on. And she can tell. But I would say definitely, as far as being the patient and being from the patient side and from the, the side of parenting that I don't know about, we have together like tugged and then pulled back, and then, almost like we always talk about this, like a tug of war, almost like she's on one side, I'm on the other. We're both trying to get to the same goal, like be there for each other and also understand. And so sometimes, like in my 20s, there were some really rough times. And that's not to say that they weren't really learning times, but there were times where I was like, I need you to just listen to me. I just want you to understand, like, this is just what MS is in my body. And I wish you could understand it. And then the conversation would then be her saying things like, I don't think you understand how much I wish I could have this disease instead of you. And so I can't imagine as a parent that hurt to see your child, even if it's just fatiguing. I mean, Brenda, you know what I'm talking about? That MS hug and that fatigue is unlike anything else. And I wish I could explain it to people. So she's really equipped me. But I think the biggest thing is that our conversations have had to like go through some valleys and then some awesome mountains. And we have really figured out this beautiful path.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I'm really thankful for that. But I just, if anybody is out there that's, a kid that's living with MS, or a parent, since my mom can't talk right now, I would just say, like, don't get down on yourself if you guys have those awkward and those sandpapery conversations that maybe don't always end well, and you're trying to express how you're feeling physically and mentally, because you have to rise again. And that's part of this disease, and figuring it out with your partner, with your community support partner, with your regular, whether that be your marital partner, your spouse, your friend group. I have an amazing community friend group that's really like my support system here when mom can't be. And just the fact that we've been able to like figure out what that conversation is, and having to be very blunt with my friends and saying, hey, I need you to show up for me today because I'm not feeling good. Or when I can't go to happy hour or something, we have happy hour at my house. Sometimes it's just what you have to do.
That's awesome. Well, again, these 10 minutes have flown by. And Patty, I'm sorry we didn't get to hear your voice. I think that Channing did a really good job of talking about your beautiful relationship. So thank you for everything you've done for her. But thank you guys for being here tonight. And I really, really appreciate your input and your story. I would wish we could hear more from everybody. And thank you to all of our panelists. I'm going to turn this back over to Dr. Boster, and he is going to give us a little wrap up.
Howdy, am I back on? It's been a really informative evening. I want to thank all of the families that were brave and willing to share what it's like to strive and live your life with this as a part of your experience as a family. And so I genuinely want to thank everyone for your willingness to share tonight. It means a lot to me. And I've learned a lot, and I can only imagine what it means for the people that have logged on. I want to thank AmCam for the opportunity for us to get together this evening. I agree with the opening speaker that this is a fantastic resource. We need to be doing this more often. We need to do it when there isn't a viral global pandemic. And I really hope that people appreciate that there is a larger village, that outside of your home where you're sheltering in place, there's a group of people that love you and that are going through very similar experiences. And I think it's evenings like tonight that allow us all to appreciate that. I know that there's a couple questions, and so I'm excited to start to address those questions. I just want to leave us with the idea that we can't support each other if we can't share and talk. And if you are grappling with this disease by yourself, I don't want you to be alone. I feel very, very strongly that we do have MS. We have MS means something to me, and it's your village. Tonight we have heard from some amazing village members. We have heard from some people that have come beyond. They've grouped together, and from what I hear, it makes them stronger. It makes their relationships stronger. It makes themselves stronger. And I think we could all learn a tremendous amount from that. So with that, I'm excited to start to address questions. Thank you all for tuning in and sticking with us through this evening. It's been fantastic for me. And I'll turn it back to the moderators so that we can start to address some of the questions from the audience. Thank you.
Okay, so actually not sure how we're getting the questions.
At the risk of being forward, I see one of them. I'll just read it to everyone.
Oh, you do see it? I don't have, maybe I have the wrong thing open. You go ahead, Dr. Bosco.
This is a
Thank you.
question from Debbie Schultz. So Debbie writes in, these families are wonderfully helpful. Thank you. Perhaps a topic to please address would be for those with MS that don't have support families, despite healthy measures, to have tried to inform them. Obviously, move on to help oneself and find other support to just address, and some don't have supportive families. God always provides. And I think that you bring up a really important point. Family is a cultural construct. I'm a believer that family has nothing to do with blood. It has to do with love. And so you might not have a blood relative that's there to support you, but I insist that you reach beyond that to define your own village. Maybe your village includes your neighbor who is always there for you. Maybe your village includes the support that you have at church or in synagogue or at your mosque. Maybe your village extends to close coworkers that you've confided in. And it is incumbent upon you to reach out to those village members. Just like we heard a young lady say to her mom, sometimes I just need to talk to you. I'm not having a relapse. I just need to vent. I need to share. And I think that we can create a family to surround ourselves. It's critically important. And if you don't have a brother, sister, mother who can do that, I want us to keep in mind the importance of creating that village for you. I don't know, Brenda, if you could speak to that a little bit. I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, I think the same thing that you said, basically, just that, sorry, I'm trying to click out of her question. That, yeah, having a spiritual support is huge. Having, whether it be religious in whatever way, or if you just have friends and family that provide that kind of support for you. I do think a lot of people tonight have addressed having a village around you, and whether that be an MS support group or some kind of support system around you. That's obviously key. Doing this on your own is really not sustainable, because you're gonna have days when you need help in some way or another.
You know, Brenda, one of the resources that I have found to be helpful is on the interwebs. I mean, AmCam is a beautiful example of that. Tonight we heard from people from Iowa, Idaho, from Hawaii, from sunny Columbus, Ohio, and yet we all band together, and I think we did something really special. And I think that there are a lot of resources on the internet that help bring people together. There's innumerate ones. I spent a lot of time on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, and there is a community there for you. And so even if you don't have a church support group, I think that you can find that. And I really feel that it can be very, very meaningful. There's another question from Laureen, who writes, "Hi, thank you for tonight. Can you please post the name of the book you mentioned?" I'm part of Justin's Village. That's awesome. So thank you for being a Village member. So the book that I referenced is called MediKids, MEDIKIDZ. Now we just looked it up and it looks like it's no longer being actively published. You can certainly find it on eBay and you can find copies. And I really think that it's a wonderful resource. And so if you get a hold of it, grab it. And it's a beautiful book. And so I'm happy to share that tonight.
I was also thinking that COVID has been an interesting time because not only are people staying at home more, but there's also a lot more opportunities for people to have online engagement. I mean, there's so many things that are online now that weren't before. And so it makes things more accessible for people who are homebound to actually get into Zoom meetings that weren't there before, or to get into different support group type environments that weren't available online before, but now they are. I've heard of some places doing online exercise groups that can really help, that are targeted for people with MS. A lot of resources are available now because of COVID, even though COVID is not really a good thing for any of us. It can be for people who are homebound because a lot of things have become accessible.
Brenda, you're right. That's a silver lining. It's many of us in the MS community kind of get frustrated and say, "Gosh darn it, we should have done this 20 years ago." But it's here now, and there may be a silver lining that when this ends, that we can maintain these relationships through the internet, that we can maintain opportunities for telemedicine to create access and to bring people together the way that we've discussed.
Yeah, is your practice doing anything like that? Any kind of online things?
We are, and it's happened very organically. My wife's an artist, and one of my patients asked if they could do some art with her. And so on Wednesdays at noon, they jump on a Zoom and they paint together. And we've now opened this up for other members of our practice and patients and family members that would like to grab a sketch pad and paper, and you paint with Chrissy, for an hour.
That's awesome.
We do a monthly seminar that I deliver a lecture to my patients. And there's been a tremendous groundswell of people that want support groups. Men with MS, interestingly, are a minority in this disease process. People of color, as mentioned earlier, are a minority in this disease process. And so bringing like-minded people together that share an interest beyond just having the condition is really special. And so we've started to see these small support groups develop naturally and organically, and it's beautiful. And it's all we can do to try to cultivate it and support it. It's something I think is really special. How about you? What are you guys experiencing? Any changes as you deliver care remotely in your practices?
So we've actually been able to keep delivering care in person for the most part, but it's been interesting. We've been able to provide links to all these different resources that we've heard about. We haven't really come up with any of our own at this point, but it's been really cool to be able to provide our patients with the resources that are, the MS Society is doing, or, there's just a ton of different options. And a lot of our support groups have gone to Zoom, we've found out. So they've, again, like I said, been able to include people who are homebound, which is really nice.
It's beautiful.
Because a lot of people people don't want to leave the house anyway right now. So it's kind of a good alternative. But trying to see what else we have going on here. Scrolling through our questions.
Hi, this is Jake from ANCAN, not AMCAM, ANCAN, ANCAN. Yeah, ANCAN. I wanted to Greg Blake made a comment. How awesome is the moderator? And so I thought you and Dr. Bob, Aaron should hear that.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? If you want to type them in, we can try to get to those. If not, we can start to wrap up tonight. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I think our panelists were just amazing, really engaging stories. I would love to spend an hour with each of them to hear their stories. I'll give it just a little bit for questions.
Another plug for Brenda, if you'll excuse me. Debbie Schultz earlier made a comment. Let me see if I can read it again. Brenda is my nurse, and she is wonderful. Thank you for being here.
I thought I recognized her name.
It's always nice to get a pat on the head, right?
It is nice. Thank you, Debbie. We'll see you in a few months, I think. Well, Rick, I think we are out of questions at this point, so let me turn this over to you for closing. And thank you, ANCAN, for sponsoring this. This was really great.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alexa Jett, and I am representing ANCAN for Rick tonight. We would like to thank all of you so much for coming, and we would love to thank the panelists, Dr. Boster and Brenda, for being such great guests for us tonight. We especially would like to thank Dan and Jen Digman, because they are amazing people who put this all together. And I also want to give a humongous shout out to the MS support group that we have here at ANCAN, and we have Carly, Kim, Frank, and we have Jan and Den all the time. So please check us out. And to close us, I'm going to send it to you, Jan and Den. Jen and Dan, I'm sorry.
There it is. How's that? Thank you. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to the panelists, Dr. Boster, Brenda, everybody for sharing your perspectives in dealing with multiple sclerosis and the family dynamic in terms of having conversations and helping everybody to see your stories and hopefully be inspired by and move forward from there. And again, thank you all for joining us on this chat today.
And you can see how relatively easy this platform is. So Dan and I encourage you to join us at our monthly or bi-monthly support group for people with multiple sclerosis. And certainly we want to open that up to people's families. And just as Dan said, we thank you all so much for being here. And in case you don't know us, both Dan and I are living with multiple sclerosis. And we were blessed to have this amazing panel talk, and we call them friends, and we're so lucky because that is the pretty awesomeness about the MS community.
And so to just stay connected with other people and talking like with Dr. Boster, just your village. And right here, you've connected with all these people. You've had this, you can share this experience with people nationwide. And this is recorded and will be posted on YouTube, so you can share it with others to help them and encourage them to have this conversation about multiple sclerosis within your family. Thank you all again. Thank everybody. Thanks to ANCAN and everybody for being here tonight. Take care, stay well, and hopefully see you soon. Bye.
Bye.